So in talking about this conference, it's going to be in Richmond in 10 days, and that's sort of a hard stopper, how quickly it's coming up. But the real thrust behind it is that we live in the center of an empire that is at war with the world and at war with the people here at home. And we need each other as never before. And we also need a new understanding of the tasks that are facing us. There are many struggles here which in a wonderful way really focus on solidarity with different struggles around the world and are part of the movement here. How do we link it up to make it a more powerful force? It's a big challenge, and it doesn't happen automatically. Groups have to actually help each other move forward. And it's possible to do because we're not facing one war. The sheer number of wars and confrontations, you can be thinking about Korea one day and it's Venezuela the next, and the news, the headlines are Korea and the aircraft carriers, and at any given day you really wonder, is war really breaking out? No, oh my goodness, it's in Syria. No, it's in the Philippines. This is really, we need to both understand every one of these struggles, but we also need to understand what links them together. That's why we have to start to talk more and more about imperialism and the imperialist system and what it is that ruthless drive for profit and to maximize profit. It's a system that has nothing to offer the people of the world except weapons sales and military bases and war and destruction and racism and sectarian violence, and it has nothing to offer people here except repression and debt and more racism and dead-end jobs. Imperialism, it's that concentration of the banks and industries that are concentrated more and more. A few years ago they said, why, 200 people are worth more than half the population of the world. And now it's 60 people. And I think it's lower than that even. Eight.
It's like eight people.
Men, they're all men, 7 of them are white.
Yeah.
8 people worth more than half the world. That's that concentration of capital and maximizing profit. Now, understanding each other's struggles doesn't come automatically. And understanding and connecting to the wars here at home. There have been tens and tens of thousands of people in the streets if we look at the past year. No coverage in the media. No coverage. It's like it doesn't exist. The media exists to marginalize people's struggles and say that we're irrelevant and that we're insignificant. But when you think of the thousands and thousands of people who camped for weeks and then months, really in sub-degree, finally, temperatures at Standing Rock, wasn't that an incredible kind of resistance? When you think of the Black Lives Matter movement that has shut down highways and roads and taken buildings and again and again in response to every police killing, and yet not one cop in the country is serving time. That movement, and the movements at Standing Rock, and we should think about May Day here in New York, but around the country too, and the struggles in defense of the immigrants, and the airport shutdowns. How about that? But it's never reflected in the media, and so we ourselves can think that our movement is small and insignificant. But we need a perspective that really shows what we're doing and the way in which it's also echoing a growing resistance around the world. We could have held this forum tonight and had also a whole panel on Korea, on Cuba, on Zimbabwe, on Colombia, Ukraine, Syria, along with Palestine and the Philippines and Venezuela and NATO, and along with all the struggles right here. So it's not like there's any limitation on what we're doing. And this is why we think that the United National Anti-War Coalition, the conference is going to be pretty unique. Because until now, an anti-war movement was deeply kind of a pacifist movement and very much connected to the Democratic Party. Might be real strong if it was Bush, right? And then as soon as there's a Democrat, if it's Obama, and if it had been Clinton who came into office, there are lots of people who then their mouth is shut. They're not in the streets. So we need a different, and there are all kinds of groups who are so tied to the big NGOs and funded organizations, dependent on it and what they do, dependent on response from academia. We feel we need a movement that is really connected to resistance here, and that defends resistance and the right to resist here and around the world. So can we make a coalition of forces based on this? It's a tall order. It's a big, complicated undertaking, and yet it's not so hard once you have just a few points of unity and people say, yes, U.S. imperialism is a problem. And yes, we support the right to resist and fight back. So anyway, this is what the United National Anti-War Coalition is about. It's 10 days away. It's in Richmond, Virginia. And when you look around the room tonight, there's a spectacular turnout. Just even when we went around the room, the number of struggles that are represented here. In Richmond, I think we're going to be about 10 times this size. So there's folks coming from throughout the South. That's a big development. It's a big development for UNAC, too, to link up with some of those struggles. And, of course, from the Mid-Atlantic, but it's a national conference.